Okay, so cognitive moral development and limitations. So, and in fact, the morals of people is not static. It's not uh, at one time, at any time. This is the type, the standards, the moral philosophy that a person has, but it could be something that moves, develops over time. Okay, so this is the consideration that we need to look, which is the cognitive moral development. How a person's moral philosophy is relevant to him is a development rather than a static. So Kohlberg came up with the model of cognitive moral development, where the author tries to um, show a framework of the development, the stages of development in moral philosophies, or moral standing of an individual. In the first stage, people are more towards, they act according to punishment and obedience. Okay, so a person's decision whether an act is right or wrong is not connected with any higher order or philosophy, but rather with a person who has power. So so for example, a very small kid, a very small 3-year-old, uh, um, a 3-year-old wants to put knife inside his mouth, because he doesn't know whether it is harmful or beneficial for him. If it's food, he will put it inside his mouth. If it's a knife, he will also put it inside his mouth. So there's no right or wrong in his perspective. Okay, but then he has a father who has power, and the father said no, don't do it. And because of that, the kid doesn't put the knife inside his mouth. So he is totally because of this punishment and obedience, being obedient and avoiding being punished if they don't comply. Okay, but they totally have no idea on what is wrong, right, and what is right. The second stage is individual instrumental purpose and exchange, uh, which is right is what serves individual needs, and individuals evaluate behavior on the basis of its fairness to them. Okay, so it's about themselves. If an act serves my own need, then I will consider that as being ethical. If an act does not serve my need, then it is not considered as being right. It is considered wrong. The third stage is mutual interpersonal expectation, relationships, and conformity. It emphasizes the interests of others rather than simply those of themselves, although ethical motivation is still derived from obedience to rules. Okay, so in this stage, they have started to consider about others. Does this act serve the interests of other people as well, and not only myself? Okay, so it's an extension, it's a further development from stage 2. Stage 2 is thinking about the benefit to themselves. The third stage is taking the benefit from to myself and also other people. In stage 4, social system and conscious maintenance, what is right is determined by considering duty to society, not just to certain other people. So it's not only looking at other people, the nearest to him, but through the society at large. Duty, respect for authority, and the maintenance of the social order all become more focal points at this stage. The fifth stage is prior rights, social contract, and utility. Individuals are concerned with upholding the basic rights, values, and legal contracts of society. Individuals feel a sense of obligation or commitment to other groups and recognize that in some cases, legal or moral points of view may conflict. Okay, so they are upholding the basic rights, legal contracts, and sometimes and they realize that sometimes legal and moral may be in conflict with each other, may be different. Okay, and commit. They will think what is better, that other groups will get benefit out of. In stage 6, which is universal ethical principles, right is determined by universal ethical principles everyone should follow. People have certain inalienable rights that are universal in nature and consequence. Those rights, laws, or social agreements are valid not because of a particular society's laws or customs, but because they rest on the premise of universality. So, with looking at the context of moral individual factors, in particular moral philosophies, we introduce the one of the ethical issue or ethical conduct, or basically or unethical behavior, which is white collar crime. Okay, so white collar crime is a crime that is perpetrated every year by non-violent business criminals. So unlike other non-white collar crime, so other crimes like murder, rape, robbery, okay, all those are non-white collar crimes and usually involves violence. Okay, but white collar crimes are non-violent. It doesn't involve violence, and usually are conducted by business people from businesses. Okay, um, however, even though they are not violent, but they may cause more damage in monetary and emotional loss. And it is said that more damage in monetary and emotional loss are caused by white collar crimes in 1 year than by violent crimes over several years combined. So in fact, there are more monetary damage caused by white collar crime than violent crimes. Often, offenders tend to be highly educated and in position of power, trust, respectability, and responsibility. Okay, so usually white collar crimes are done by people who are intelligent, people who have position, people who have power, who have responsibility, who are superiors to subordinates. Um, Corporate culture can transcend the individual's belief. With time, patterns become institutionalized, sometimes encouraging unethical behaviors. Okay, so white collar crimes um, will require an individual's moral philosophy, but sometimes the corporate culture that the individual engages in will will go beyond, will supersede the individual's moral philosophy, such that it creates the opportunity, it creates um, the situation where it encourages white collar crimes. For companies with a high number of ethical or unethical employees, people who are undecided about their behavior are more likely to go along with their co-workers. Okay, so yeah, in white collar crime, sometimes held by a group of people rather than individuals, then there are people who are neither ethical nor unethical. They will follow with the majority of the people. Okay, so if there are more ethical people, then these neutral people will follow the ethical behavior. Some business people may have inherently criminal personalities. So they have criminal personalities, and when they are in the position of power, in the position of responsibility, they may commit white collar crime. Um, so, well, examples of white collar crime is bribery, okay, um, corruption, kickbacks, where example when a person who is a purchasing agent, a purchasing agent is given the responsibility to purchase items for the organization, but then a supplier gives bribe to the purchasing agent so that the purchasing agent will only buy items from that particular supplier. Okay, and he receives the bribe, maybe a 5% bribe, so he gets the money into his own pocket, and the company will purchase from that particular supplier who offers the bribe. So that is also an example of a white collar criminal. It doesn't require any violence. uh, People who are in position of power is making the bribe. Okay, and some of these business people, they actually have inherently criminal personalities. So individual factors in business ethics, we can see is an important factor. Okay, however, individual moral decisions are much more complex than learning about different moral philosophies. So even though we learn very briefly about several moral philosophies, but how individual moral decisions are made, it's not as easy as understanding the moral philosophies. Understanding those philosophies also will take time, but how individual moral decisions are made is even more complex than that. Individual values are not the only driver of ethical behavior in business. So while we say that individual factors have a strong influence on ethical decisions, on ethical intentions of businesses, they are not the only driver. A personal moral compass is important, but it's not sufficient to prevent ethical misconduct in an organizational context. Okay, so organizations behaving as an organization may be influenced by individual factors, but not the only one. Okay, the individual factors is not the only one. The development of strong abilities in ethical reasoning will probably lead to more ethical business decisions in the future than individualized character education for each employee. So in problem solving context, or how addressing ethical decisions, how do we ensure that organizations make ethical decisions, um, is through the development of strong abilities in ethical reasoning. Okay, exposing training our employees to have strong abilities in ethical reasoning that will help the organization to ensure that individuals in the organization will make more ethical decisions.